The recruitment hall on Station Meridian smelled like recycled air and broken dreams. Commander Jessa Kane stood in line with 40 other species, each one looking more lethal than the last. A Drexith warrior towered at 9 feet, scales gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. 3 Quilnari mercenaries chittered among themselves, their 6 arms flexing in unison. Even the Sorthak delegate, barely 4 feet tall, radiated the kind of menace that came from acid blood and a nasty disposition. Then there was Jessa, 5'7". Brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, scars on her knuckles from bar fights on 6 different worlds. She wore her Earth defense uniform with pride, even though most aliens thought humans were the galaxy's favorite punchline. The doors hissed open. A Kralix instructor strode through, and the room fell silent. His name was Drexith Marn. 7 feet of purple-scaled arrogance wrapped in combat armor that had seen actual war. 3 eyes swept across the assembled recruits with the kind of contempt usually reserved for insects. His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or disgust. With his species, it was hard to tell. "Welcome to advanced combat training for the Galactic Defense Initiative," Drexith announced, his voice carrying the metallic rasp of a translator implant. "Most of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few might actually survive long enough to embarrass yourselves in real combat." He paced before them, claws clicking on the metal floor. "I have trained warriors from 17 systems. I have seen species that breathe methane kick species that breathe chlorine into next week. I have watched Dendari shock troopers cry for their mothers." He paused. "But nothing, absolutely nothing, has prepared me for the absurdity of a human in my training hall." Jessa's jaw tightened. She kept her eyes forward. Drexith stopped directly in front of her. His middle eye focused while the other 2 scanned for threats, a predator's instinct never quite switching off. "And what do we have here?" He leaned down, mandibles spreading in what his species considered a smile. Jessa considered it an invitation to violence. "A human. Tell me, little mammal, what exactly qualifies you to train alongside warriors bred for combat?" 4 years of frontline experience in the outer colonies," Jessa said, voice level. "Survived the massacre at Pinnacle Ridge, decorated for valor at the Battle of Kepler Station." "Fascinating." Drexith straightened, turning to address the room. "She has survived. This is the human contribution to warfare, everyone. Survival, not dominance. Not victory, survival." He pronounced the last word like an insult. "Humans are famous for their endurance, yes? They chase prey until it collapses. They heal from wounds that would kill civilized species. But strength?" He spun back to Jessa, moving faster than something his size had any right to move. "Show me your strength, human." Jessa met his gaze. 2 eyes against 3. She did not blink. "With respect, sir. Strength evaluation is scheduled for day 2 according to the training manifest." "With respect," Drexith mocked, his voice rising an octave in a cruel parody of her tone. "I am altering the schedule. Show me these muscles I have heard so much about. Humans are supposed to be pound-for-pound competitive, yes?" Let us see, the room watched. Jessa felt 40 pairs of eyes, multiple sets of optical sensors, and probably a few thermal pits all tracking her next move. "Now, human." She stepped forward, removed her uniform jacket with deliberate care, folding it precisely before setting it aside. Underneath, her tank top revealed arms that had been earned. Through years of Earth's heavy gravity and combat that did not forgive. Weakness. Drexith circled her like a shark that had found something interesting in the water. "Adequate," he said finally, "for a species that evolved to throw sticks at predators. But compared to a Vrekt," he gestured to the 9-foot warrior, "compared to a Kralix, you are a child playing at war." "Then I look forward to learning from the best," Jessa said, her voice carefully neutral. "Learning." Drexith's mandibles clicked rapidly now, with genuine amusement. "No, you will learn your limitations. You will learn that humans were not meant for war. You were meant for running, for hiding, for surviving in holes while real warriors claim the stars." Something shifted behind Jessa's eyes. A calculation was happening, cold and precise. Is there a problem, Commander Kane? Drexith leaned in close enough that she could smell whatever he had eaten for breakfast. It smelled like sulfur and bad decisions. No, sir. Good. Because I would hate for you to embarrass your species on your first day. He turned away, addressing the room again. The human will demonstrate basic hand-to-hand combat, unarmed, standard rules. First to yield or achieve submission wins. His eyes found hers again. Choose your opponent. It was a test. Everyone knew it. Choose someone weak, prove nothing. Choose someone too strong and get humiliated. Jessa looked around the room. Her gaze settled on a Quilnari mercenary, six-armed and confident. Not the biggest threat, but formidable enough to make a statement. No, Drexith interrupted. I will choose. You will fight me! The room erupted in murmurs. Even the Vrekt warrior shifted uncomfortably. Sir, one of the other instructors ventured, a mammalian torth with more sense than pride. Regulations state that instructors only engage recruits in supervised combat scenarios and... Did I ask for a regulation review? Drexith did not look away from Jessa. The human wants to prove herself. I am offering her the opportunity. Jessa smiled then. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile that came before someone did something spectacularly stupid or spectacularly brilliant. I accept. They cleared the center of the room. The other recruits formed a circle, some eager to watch a human get demolished, others genuinely curious about what was about to happen. Drexith removed his armor plating with practiced efficiency. Underneath, he was still 7 feet of scaled muscle and combat instinct honed over 3 decades. He had trained thousands, killed hundreds, survived wars that had ended civilizations. Jessa rolled her shoulders, loosening up. She bounced on her toes twice, testing the floor's grip. Ready to yield, human? Just warming up, they squared off. Drexith's stance was textbook Kralix combat form, weight distributed for maximum power, 3 eyes tracking 7 different potential strikes simultaneously. Jessa's stance was human street fighting mixed with Marine Corps training, and 4 years of learning that rules were suggestions. When survival was on the line, Drexith struck first, a probing jab designed to test her reflexes. Fast, precise. Jessa slipped it, barely, feeling the air displacement as his claws passed inches from her face. Adequate reflexes, Drexith admitted. Now let me show you real speed. He came in hard, a combination that would have overwhelmed most opponents through sheer power and technique. High strike, low sweep, grapple attempt, all flowing together in a sequence that his species had perfected over millennia. Jessa met him in the middle. She did not try to match his strength. That would have been suicide. Instead, she used what Earth had given her, what gravity and evolution and sheer bloody-minded human stubbornness had built into her bones. She redirected his high strike, using his own momentum, dropped under the sweep with flexibility that his rigid body structure could never match. When he reached for the grapple, she was already moving, striking at the nerve cluster below his middle arm, the one that Kralix anatomy made vulnerable because they had never fought opponents small enough to target it consistently. Drexith hissed, pulling back. You have done your homework, he said, respect creeping into his voice for the first time. But anatomy lessons will not save you. He changed tactics, going for power over technique. He was bigger, stronger, and more experienced. In a straight fight, he would win. Everyone knew it. Jessa did not fight straight. She baited him into overcommitting on a strike, then used his forward momentum to trip him into a position where his size worked against him. On the ground, his 3 eyes had blind spots. His longer limbs needed space to generate power. His scaled hide protected against claws and teeth, but did nothing against joint locks. Clever, Drexith growled, trying to reverse the position. But cleverness only goes so far. So does ego, Jessa shot back, wrenching his arm into a position that made several recruits wince in sympathy. They rolled, struggling for position. Drexith used his weight advantage to pin her twice. Both times she slipped free using techniques that made the watching instructors exchange worried glances. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were not supposed to be able to do this. "Stay down," Drexith commanded, trying for a pin that would end the fight. "Make me." That was when Jessa stopped being defensive. She had learned his patterns, understood his rhythm. Now she went on the attack with the kind of focused aggression that had made humans the galaxy's most unexpected survivors. She struck at vulnerable points with precision, used her lower center of gravity to sweep him off balance. When he tried to grab her, she was already gone, moving to another angle, another opportunity. The room was silent now. No more murmurs. Everyone was watching a human do the impossible. Drexith was breathing harder. His 3 eyes showed something new. Not fear exactly, but awareness. The kind of awareness that came when a predator realized the prey had teeth. They broke apart, circling again. "You are better than I expected," Drexith admitted. "But this ends now." He came in with everything, abandoning technique for pure, overwhelming force. It was the kind of attack that ended fights. Should have ended this fight. Jessa met him head-on. She ducked under his main strike, took a glancing blow that would bruise her ribs for a week, and found herself inside his guard. Too close for him to use his reach advantage. Close enough to do what needed doing. She drove her shoulder into his center of mass, using his own weight against him, followed with a strike to his knee joint, the one that bent backwards on Kralix physiology. As he started to fall, she controlled his descent, transitioning smoothly into a rear chokehold that cut off blood flow to his primary brain. "Yield," she said quietly, "just for him." Drexith struggled. His strength was still superior. He could probably break the hold with enough time, but time was the one thing he did not have. Jessa's arms were locked in place, and human endurance was legendary. She could hold this position until he passed out or until he swallowed his pride. "Yield," she repeated, voice flat and professional. The room held its breath. Drexith's hand came up, tapped twice against the floor, the universal signal for submission. Jessa released him immediately, stepping back. She offered him a hand up, professional courtesy despite everything. He stared at the offered hand for a long moment, then took it, allowing her to help him to his feet. The room exploded in reaction. Some species cheered. Others made whatever sounds indicated shock in their native languages. The Vrekt warrior was laughing, a sound like rocks in a tumbler. Drexith raised his hand for silence. Got it immediately. He looked at Jessa for a long moment, 3 eyes evaluating, measuring. Then his mandibles spread in what might have been a smile or a threat display or possibly both. "Perhaps," he said slowly. "I underestimated humans. Perhaps you did. Sir, training begins tomorrow at 600 hours. I expect you to be early." He turned to address the room. "I expect all of you to be early. Because if a human can do this, then none of you have any excuse for failure." He retrieved his armor, moving a bit stiffly. As he passed Jessa, he paused. "Your species has a saying, yes? About eating one's words? Close enough. Consider mine eaten, Commander Kane." His middle eye fixed on her. "But know this. I will push you harder than anyone else in this program, because you have proven you can handle it." "Looking forward to it, sir." After he left, the other recruits crowded around. Questions flew from a dozen species. How did she move like that? Where did she learn that chokehold? Could she teach them that knee strike? But Jessa was watching the door where Drexith had exited, a small smile playing at her lips. Round 1 was over. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. Dawn came early on Station Meridian. Jessa Kane was already awake, running the perimeter track under artificial lights that tried to mimic a sun that was actually 3 systems away. Her breath came steady, feet hitting the deck in a rhythm that had been drilled into her by drill sergeants who made Drexith look downright friendly. The station was quiet at this hour. Most sensible beings were still in their bunks, grabbing whatever sleep they could before training turned their lives into controlled chaos. Jessa was not most beings. She finished her run, hit the showers, and was standing outside the training hall at 0530 hours, early as promised. The door opened at 0545. Drexith Marn stood there, looking like he had not slept at all. His 3 eyes swept over her with something that might have been approval. "You are early." "You said to be early, sir." "I say many things. Few listen." He gestured inside. "Come. We need to talk before the others arrive." The training hall was different in the pre-dawn quiet. Without 40 recruits filling it with noise and nervous energy, it felt bigger, more dangerous. The equipment looked less like training tools and more like instruments of creative torture. Drexith led her to the center of the mat, where they had fought yesterday. "You humiliated me," he said without preamble. "I defended myself." "Sir, do not play games with me, human. You did more than defend. You calculated, analyzed, exploited every weakness in my combat style with the precision of someone who has studied Kralix physiology extensively." His middle eye narrowed. "How long have you been preparing for this?" Jessa met his gaze. Honesty seemed like the best policy, mostly because lying to someone with 3 eyes seemed statistically doomed to fail. 6 months, since I got accepted into the program. 6 months to learn enough about my species to defeat an instructor. He made a sound that his translator rendered as a laugh. "That is either dedication or obsession." "Little bit of both, sir." "Why?" The question was genuine. You could have taken the loss, learned from it, moved forward. Instead, you studied, prepared, made me look foolish in front of 40 recruits. With respect, sir, you made yourself look foolish. Jessa's voice hardened. You assumed I was weak because I am human. You mocked my species. You set up a fight designed to humiliate me. She stepped closer. I just decided the humiliation was going to run in a different direction. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the first sounds of the station waking up filtered through the walls. Footsteps, conversations in a dozen languages. The hum of life support systems keeps thousands of beings alive in the vacuum of space. Then Drexith laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded like rocks falling down a cliff, but it was genuine. You are right, he said finally. I was arrogant. I let my prejudice against humans cloud my judgment. That is not acceptable behavior for an instructor. He tilted his head. It is also exactly the lesson I needed to teach this class. Sir? These recruits will face enemies who underestimate them. Who makes assumptions? Who believes species stereotypes more than combat reality? His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You just demonstrated the value of turning those assumptions into weapons. That is a lesson worth learning. The door opened. The wrecked warrior entered, followed by the 3 Quilnari mercenaries and a steady stream of other recruits. Everyone looked nervous. Word had spread about yesterday's fight, apparently. Now they were all wondering what fresh nightmare their instructors had planned. Drexith waited until everyone was assembled. 600 hours exactly. Yesterday, he began without preamble, I made a mistake. I let personal bias influence professional judgment. I underestimated Commander Kane because of her species. She made me pay for that assumption. He gestured to Jessa. Today, we will discuss why that was tactically sound and how each of you can apply the same principles. The day that followed was brutal. Drexith ran them through combat scenarios that exploited every weakness in every species present. The Vrekt learned that size meant nothing against opponents who targeted joints. The Quilnari discovered that 6 arms were useless if 3 of them got tangled in each other. Even the Sorthak, with its acid blood, found out that confidence was not the same as competence. Jessa got no special treatment. If anything, Drexith pushed her harder, forcing her to demonstrate techniques. that used human physiology against species that should have been superior in every metric. Again, he ordered after she successfully took down a Quilnari who outweighed her by 300 pounds. Explain your thinking. Gravity on Quilnar is 0.67 Earth standard, Jessa said, breathing hard. They evolve strength for their environment, not ours. On a standard gravity world, they are carrying extra mass with muscles adapted for lighter conditions. I use that against them. And how did you know to strike the third arm first? Their neural structure processes limb coordination in sequence. Third arm response time is 0.3 seconds slower than the first two. Creates a window. Drexith turned to the watching recruits. This is intelligence-driven combat. She studied her opponent, understood the physics, exploited the gap between theory and practice. He looked at the Quilnari, who was picking himself up off the mat with wounded pride. You assumed strength was enough. It never is. Lunch came and went. Then dinner. By the time the night cycle hit, every recruit was exhausted, bruised, and seriously reconsidering their career choices. Jessa collapsed into her bunk, muscles screaming. Tomorrow would be worse. The day after, worse still. That was the nature of military training. Break you down. Build you back up stronger. Repeat until you were either a warrior or a washout, her comm unit chirped. Message from Drexith, training hall. 2,200 hours. Come alone, she should have been suspicious. Probably was suspicious. Went anyway because curiosity was apparently stronger than common sense. The hall was dark when she arrived. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across equipment that looked vaguely sinister in the dim illumination. Drexith was waiting in the center, still in his armor. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice, sir? Always, that is the point. He gestured to the mat. I want a rematch, Jessa blinked. Sir? Yesterday I underestimated you. Lost because of arrogance. His three eyes glinted in the low light. Today I am prepared. I know your tricks. Understand your strategy. Now we fight as equals, and if I say no, then we do not fight and you go back to your bunk. This is not an order, Commander Kane. It is a request. From one warrior to another. Jessa studied him. Looking for the trap. The angle. The hidden agenda. Found none. Just honest respect and the desire to test himself against an opponent who had surprised him. No observers? She asked. No observers. Standard rules? Standard rules. She stepped onto the mat. Rolled her shoulders. Bounced twice on her toes. Try not to make this too easy for me, sir. Drexith's laugh was like thunder. Arrogance suits you, human. Let us see if you can back it up twice. This fight was different. Drexith knew her style now. Anticipated her moves. Closed off the angles she had exploited before. He was faster, more cautious, treating her like a legitimate threat instead of an amusing diversion. Jessa adapted. Humans were good at that. Had to be. When you were not the strongest or fastest or most naturally armed, you learned to be flexible, creative, unpredictable. They traded strikes and reversals, both breathing hard, neither willing to yield. Minutes stretched. What should have been a quick demonstration turned into a genuine contest of skill versus skill, strength versus strategy, experience versus innovation. Finally, they broke apart, both exhausted. Draw? Drexith suggested. Draw, Jessa agreed. They sat on the mat, catching their breath. Two warriors from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, finding common ground in the universal language of combat. You know what the other instructors said when I told them I wanted humans in this program? Drexith asked after a moment. That we were too weak? No, that we were too dangerous. He looked at her with all three eyes. Not physically, mentally. Humans are terrifying because you refuse to accept limitations. You see a problem, you solve it. See a barrier, you break it. See a species that is stronger, faster, better, and you find a way to win anyway. That a compliment or a warning, sir? Both. He stood, offering her a hand up. She took it. The galaxy underestimates your species, Commander Kane. That is their mistake. But it is also your weapon. Never let them see you coming until it is too late. The next weeks passed in a blur of training, studying, fighting, and recovering. Jessa earned grudging respect from species that had never considered humans worthy of notice. She also made friends, which was somehow more surprising than earning respect. The Frecht warrior, whose name was Thorgrim, and who apparently had a sense of humor buried under all that scale and muscle. The lead Quilnari mercenary, Kessa, who decided that anyone who could put her on the floor deserved drinks and war stories. Even the Sorthak, who went by Pip and had a laugh that could strip paint. Graduation day arrived faster than expected and slower than hoped, as all military milestones somehow managed to do. The ceremony was formal, dignified and boring in the way that official events always were. Dignitaries gave speeches. Awards were distributed. Everyone pretended to pay attention while secretly planning what they would do with their first leave in months. When it came time for Drexith to address his graduates, he kept it short. You came here as recruits. Representatives of your species, your worlds, your evolutionary paths. You leave here as something more. He paused, 3 eyes sweeping across the assembled warriors. You leave here as soldiers of the Galactic Defense Initiative, and you leave knowing that strength comes in many forms. His gaze found Jessa in the crowd. Some of you will be stronger, some faster, some are more naturally lethal. He did not look away from her, but all of you will be dangerous. Because I have taught you to think, to adapt, to win even when victory seems impossible. After the ceremony, as graduates scattered to celebrate or rest or contemplate their futures, Drexith found Jessa one last time. Orders came through, he said. You are assigned to Forward Operating Base Kestrel. Outer Rim. Bad neighborhood. Perfect. You are insane. I like that about humans. He handed her a data chip. Advanced combat techniques. Things I did not teach the others. Use them wisely. Why give this to me, sir? Because you earned it. Because you made me eat the floor in front of 40 recruits and somehow turned it into the best lesson I have ever taught. His mandibles spread in what had become familiar. Respect mixed with amusement, mixed with genuine affection. Also because the galaxy needs more humans like you. The kind that refuse to quit. Refuse to lose. Refuse to accept that they should not be here. Jessa took the chip. Thank you, sir. For everything. Thank your species' genetics and your stubborn refusal to acknowledge reality. I just provided the training. He started to leave, then paused. Commander Kane? Yes, sir? When you are out there fighting impossible odds with inadequate resources against enemies that should terrify you, remember something. What is that, sir? Remember that you made a Kralix combat instructor tap out in front of his own students. If you can do that, you can do anything, she smiled. I will keep that in mind, sir. Years later, when Jessa Kane became the first human to command a mixed-species strike force, when she led operations that turned the tide of battles and saved colonies that had been written off as lost causes, people would ask how she did it. How does a human compete with species bred for war? How does someone from a gravity well full of predators and bad decisions become a legend among beings that have been fighting for millennia? She never told them about her first day at advanced combat training. Never mentioned Drexith Marn or the fight that changed everything, but sometimes, late at night when the war was quiet and the stars looked like they might actually stay peaceful for a while, she would smile and think about an arrogant Kralix instructor who learned that underestimating humans was the fastest way to end up looking at the ceiling from an uncomfortable angle. The galaxy had expected humans to be prey, to be refugees, to be the species that survived but never thrived. They were learning differently now. One fight at a time, one victory at a time, one instructor eating the floor at a time, and Jessa Kane was just getting started.